This is Excel 2016, Module 5, Part 7. We will be looking at the subtotal feature. Now I am going to add an additional step here. You don't necessarily have to do this. We're going back into our June workbook. If I do the subtotal feature on the sales data worksheet, then I have to recreate the table later on. And I don't want to have to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy. So we're going to say, clicking on the sales data, we're going to go up to File, on the Home tab. We're going to say Format, Move and Copy, and I'm going to say create a copy and put it at the end. I'm going to rename this one Subtotal. So it's important to see that it's exactly the same as we had on our original worksheet. But in a minute, you'll see why I didn't want to do it on the original one. Okay, so with the subtotals, what you're going to try to do is you want Excel to calculate an amount when a field changes. So if I said at the end of each date, sale date, I want to know the total sales, I want Excel to go down the sale date field, that column, and find when it changes and insert a subtotal. But right now, with our custom sort, that won't work, because what it would do is it would insert a subtotal after that record. It would then after again, and so almost after every single record you would see a subtotal. That's not what we want. So in order to make this work, the first thing you have to do is sort by the field that you want it to subtotal when that field changed. So we're going to sort oldest to newest. And now you can see that it would go down that column and say 6-1. Okay, I'm going to put a subtotal here. 6-2, I'm going to put a subtotal here, and so on. So it has to be sorted first. That's not the part that is going to affect why I made the copy. The reason I made the copy is the subtotal function does not work on an Excel table. So in order to do this, I have to go to the Table Design tab and tell it to convert it to a range. When you do that, it will convert this back to a normal range. A few ways that you can tell that this happened. Number one, my slicer is gone. The slicer was a feature of the table, and therefore it is no longer there if it is not a table. The other thing is the filter arrows went away, and so did my contextual tab. So this is no longer a Excel table. It may still have the same formatting that it did. So we still see the coloring the same and so forth, but it is not a table anymore. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Data tab, and we're going to come all the way over here and locate the button that says subtotal. Now this happens to have defaulted in the correct field because we used sale date as the field that we wanted to break after. So at the change of each sale date, I want it to sum the dollar amount, and I want it to give me a summary at the end. When I say OK, it instantly created a daily subtotal. It also gives you the ability to click on these outline buttons. So if I click on a button 1, the only thing you see is the grand total at the very end. If I click on a 2, now you see the total for each day. And if you click on 3, it opens it up and you see the detail within that daily subtotal. Let's practice that subtotal function one more time. And we're going to do it this time after each business type. So let's make another copy of this particular sales data worksheet. So I'm going to choose Move or Copy, move it to the end, and make a copy. We are going to call this Subtotal 2. Now again, notice when I click here, this is a table, right? If I'm going to use business as the field that I want to subtotal when it changes, then I must sort by business. So I'm going to say sort A to Z. Then the subtotal function does not work on a table, so I will go to the Design tab and convert it to a range. Now I did want to show you, if you do this and then afterwards you decide you didn't want to do it, you have to insert it as a table again to get the table back. And then notice you would have to rename it again because you lost that name when you converted it. So I'm going to convert it back to a range. I don't want it to be a table. So again, remember, our contextual tab is gone, our slicer is gone, our filter arrows are gone. The one that definitely tells you it's not a table is your contextual tab is gone. Okay, the filter arrows can be removed from a table and it's still a table. You can delete a slicer and it would still be a table. But if it was a table, you would see a contextual tab. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Data tab and I'm going to choose Subtotal. I don't want a subtotal after each change in sales date because look, that would give me a subtotal after every row. What I want to do is I want to look for the change in the business. So I'm going to change this top field to business. I'm going to sum. Notice there are other options if you want to do a different formula. The dollar amount. Again, I want the summary at the bottom, and I click OK. So now if I look at my outline, again, The 1 is going to give you the grand total. That looks the same as the other one. This time, though, instead of getting a subtotal for each date, we get a subtotal by business category. And so you can see the total individual sales, group home sales, etc. And again, 3 opens up that subtotal and gives you all the detail. I'm going to go ahead and save my work. And I'm going to see, I believe that is the only thing we need to look at with our subtotals. We do need to look at removing them. So let's say I decided on this one that I no longer want those subtotals there. So if I'm on subtotal worksheet, that is subtotaling by sales date, I can choose the subtotal button and I can choose to remove all. If you do that, it puts the data exactly back the way it was. And then if you needed to, you could turn it back into a table. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the subtotal back in. Subtotal by sales amount, sales date, and sum the amount. And you can see it pulls those data back in. I did keep the sales data worksheet intact so that when we go to do our pivot tables in the next section, we can easily create those pivot tables from our Excel table. So I'm going to go ahead and save the work. And if you're interested in reviewing pivot tables, I will see you back at the next video.